Well, the NFL free agency period has started despite the coronavirus basically halting all of sports, which is good. We need some sports in our life, but the biggest storyline isn't the biggest signing of the day. It's the biggest trade of the day, which is the Houston Texans trading DeAndre Hopkins to the Arizona Cardinals for David Johnson. In terms of the trade as well, the Texans are getting the second round pick from the Cardinals this year, and both teams are swapping fourth round selections. And there's a lot to dissect with this, but I'm going to start on the Cardinals side. And we talk about a lot of great general managers in the NFL, but I don't think we give Steve Keim enough credit in Arizona. I mean, when you think about a franchise that doesn't have the glitz and the glamour, it's not a franchise that has a great pedigree, it's not in a great market, it's not an attractive market for free agents. He's done a very good job building that team and making tough decisions. I mean, we're talking about a guy that traded up for Josh Rosen, and then a year later, after hiring his new head coach, had the guts to take a quarterback at number one overall with Kyler Murray. And it seems to be the right pick. Now, you look at this year, then he went out and got Kenyon Drake when David Johnson was hurt and not producing. They've just tagged Drake, so now they're going to have Drake, DeAndre Hopkins, and Larry Fitzgerald to help Kyler Murray's young development. I'll say this about Arizona. They might not be a great team, but they're going to be a fun watch and a fun offense next season. And you have to give Steve Keim a lot of credit. He kept that valuable first-round pick that they have this year. He moved on with the second-round pick to get DeAndre Hopkins, a guy who's locked up, a guy that's going to help his young quarterback develop, and who has been a wide receiver who has a great reputation as a hard worker and really not a distraction. Sometimes you worry with these wide receivers, are they going to be a distraction and a hindrance to a young player's development? But we've seen Hopkins help develop a great young quarterback in Deshaun Watson, but also produce with quarterbacks that were nowhere near the talent of Kyler Murray. So to me, this is a great move for the Arizona Cardinals. Barely give up anything for it, but most importantly, it's a move that's going to help their young quarterback. They are trying to help their young quarterback succeed. Which brings me around to the Texans. I have no idea what the Texans are doing. And look, I get part of this move. To me, the biggest reason is they want to get more draft capital. They traded all those first-round picks and draft picks before the season. They get a second-round back, which is a nice pick for them in this draft. But, man, they have a great wide receiver that they're trading in. I'm one of those people that I don't value receivers as highly as other positions in the NFL, but when you have arguably the best wide receiver in football on your team and he's not a head case, I don't get why they're moving on from him. This is a situation where I get what they're coming from and I can get what they're trying to do. They're trying to get a valuable draft pick and a running back to come in. But here's the problem. David Johnson, since 2016 when he had his breakout year, every year since then, he's been on the decline in terms of performance and in terms of injuries. I mean, it's very concerning. And it's very interesting because we saw Patrick Mahomes win the Super Bowl this year. And by far and away, Patrick Mahomes is one of the greatest talents I think we've ever seen. But we forget that Deshaun Watson has been just as good. You look at the record, you look at the throwing and the stats, and you look, I mean, in terms of the record, they had the same record coming into the postseason this year. And I would argue that he's had a lot harder road. He doesn't have Andy Reid. He doesn't have the weapons. And I get they has DeAndre Hopkins, but he's never had a consistent running game, never had a great offensive line. And, I mean, we're talking about an offensive line. Like, they had to trade a bunch of picks to get Laramie Tunsil just to hold down that offensive line so he didn't get killed this year. And I understand that Watson makes players better, but I don't think that David Johnson's going to make this team a lot better. I mean, this is a guy who is breaking down, and this is a guy who has underperformed the last couple of years, and Arizona's just happy to get rid of him. And this is the one thing I worry about with Deshaun Watson. Is he going to be this division's next Andrew Luck? Is this going to be another guy where we see his talent never fully realized? Because don't forget the Colts fell into that similar trap until it was too late. Oh, well, he's such a talented quarterback. We can get away with lesser pieces. We can get away with not investing in the offensive line. We can get away with all these things. But like Luck, Watson's been banged up early in his career. And if this continues, this could be a guy who might not live up to his full potential, and that's on the Texans. I mean, you were looking forever since this expansion franchise to get a franchise quarterback. It took 2 decades to finally get a quarterback, and you are the best quarterback in that division by far. And you still struggle and you still make decisions where you just go, what are you thinking? And I get what they're going to say. Well, it was a cap reason. We want to get some extra draft capital. You're hoping you're getting a good player, a starting caliber player with a second-round pick. You're not getting DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, this guy is unbelievable, and he has been consistent, but most importantly, he's been a very good guy in that locker room. Now, I love J.J. Watt, and I think he is an incredibly talented player. But Watt has been a bigger hindrance on the Texans than Hopkins. Hopkins at least has been producing it on the field. I mean, J.J. Watt, you look the last couple of years, he has not been able to stay healthy, and he is killing them with cap space. If you were to tell me that the Texans moved on from Watt before Hopkins, I would have said that was probably the smarter move. And I know it won't be a popular move because of what he means to that community, because of how great of a person he is, because of how big of a megastar he is in this league. But if you just look at the terms of production and being on the field, there's not a comparison. Hopkins has been consistently there, and you can't tell me he hasn't helped with Deshaun Watson's development. So I think it was incredibly short-sighted by the Texans. I think this is going to be a move that they will regret down the road, especially if Johnson doesn't produce. I mean, if Johnson has a great year next year, hey, more power to you. It helps you in the short term, but you look at the Cardinals. I mean, when we look at trades, we always try to find the winner and loser, and usually it's, I want to say 60-40. I mean, you can see where both sides feel kind of good with what they got. The overwhelming reaction I've seen is Texan fans are pissed about this trade, and Cardinal fans are jumping for joy. Now, in the NFL, you never know with injuries, you never know with production, how things will turn out. But right now, I think DeAndre Hopkins, he's going to be instrumental in the development of Kyler Murray. And Deshaun Watson, I mean, this team, they got him a left tackle last year, but they're giving away his best, most dynamic wide receiver. They're giving him a running back that's been on the decline with injury problems the last 3 years. It just seems once again that it's the mismanagement by the Houston Texans that's going to put Deshaun Watson behind the 8 ball. And look, he's going to win games. He's likely going to win that division again. But if the Texans fully want to realize his potential, they have to be smart with what they do and the pieces they put around him. And right now, they just took away a big piece from him. And a piece that I think in a year, maybe 2, maybe even 5 years, they're going to look back and say, was it really worth it to get a running back and an extra second-round pick for DeAndre Hopkins? And my personal feelings is the answer will be no. That's going to do it for this episode. Make sure you follow and subscribe so you don't miss any of our latest content. Plenty of mock drafts around the corner. We're just waiting to the end of free agency just so it calms down a little bit and we have a better idea of what teams' needs will be after the free agency period. But just remember to hit that like and subscribe button because, of course, we don't want you to miss any of that great content. But until next time, I'm your host, Nolan Rich, and this is Rich Sports Talk.